Welcome to Sakshi TV's special immigration show with attorney Ms. Prashanthi Reddy from Law Offices of Prashanthi Reddy, PLLC. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 3 immigration shows every week: on Tuesday at 3 p.m. EST with attorney Ms. Sheila Murthy, Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Prashanthi Reddy in English, and on Friday at 6 p.m. EST with attorney Bhanu Ilindra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and is for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for use of information. If you need specific legal advice, please contact the attorney directly. Ms. Prashanthi needs no introduction, but if you need consultation, please log on to reddyesq.com for contact information. And when you connect with them, don't forget to mention Sakshi TV. From the beginning, reddyesq.com has put a wealth of free information and online tools in the hands of immigrant community and for the benefit of US employers. The reddyesq.com site provides you with latest and cutting-edge information on US immigration law and policies explained in terms you don't have to be a lawyer to understand. Today's topic is the H-1B registrations. We will continue the knowledge session along with the news and updates on latest immigration, followed by Q&A. Before we get into the topic, you can call us on the numbers on the screen for questions related to immigration and also ask for tips. Hello, Ms. Prashanthi. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Torni?
Very well, thank you. So, Ms. Reddy, before we get into the topic, do we have any latest immigration updates for this week that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yes, so we're going to be focusing on 2 topics this week. One is immigration updates, which I will present shortly. And the next one is, just a bird's eye view of what happened in 2021. Since this is our first show in the new year, I thought we should talk about, highlights of what happened in 2021, briefly as time permits. So to start off with, with reference to immigration updates, there's been just a couple of updates that I want to give you. One is significant. I mean, both are significant, but very useful to our Indian community as well, which is the visa waiver update. So the US Department of State announced that the visa interview requirement could be waived for certain visa applicants. So those applicants who are in H1, H3, H4, Ls, O, P, and Q categories, the interview waiver authorization is possible, and this is only for a short time. It's for a year, so it's until December 31st, 2022. It is possible that your visa interview will be waived if the officer decides to do so.
Right.
So they're authorized. So U.S. consulate officers are authorized to waive interviews for individuals applying for these particular visas. And applicants who have previously issued this type of visa are eligible to participate in this new interview waiver program. But an interview waiver is not available to applicants who have previously had a visa rejection or a denial, unless that denial was later overcome or waived. Or also, it's not applicable. The waiver is not applicable for those who are ineligible to get a visa. So if they have some other issues, if they've committed a crime or if they're been unlawfully present or, something like that, then they will not be eligible for a visa waiver. Additionally, also in order to be eligible, you should have had that type of a visa before. So this should be an extension.
So it cannot be a first time. Applicable for people who are applying for the first time then, without any criminal record or, any rejections. If I were to apply for this visa for the first time, I don't think there wouldn't be a waiver for me.
There wouldn't be unless, and that's what I was going to say, if you're applying for the first time and if you're part of the visa waiver program. So certain countries are part of the visa waiver program, such as UK, Canada. So these countries, if you are a national of one of those countries and you're part of the visa waiver program, then even if it's your first time application, you will still be eligible for a visa waiver. So if you're from an Indian national which is not part of the visa waiver program, then it's eligible only for people who, first of all, are eligible to get a visa. That means they don't have any they don't have any criminal record or other such immigration violations against them. And also it's an extension. So they should fulfill two requirements to get the waiver. So if you've previously been on a H, O, or P or L visa and you're applying for an extension of your visa, you will be eligible for the visa waiver program. And they've also said that in addition to the H and the L and O and P and Q visas, they're also extending this visa interview waiver policy to the F and the M and the J visas, so the student visas, all the different categories of student visas. And this is also the same thing for visa waiver countries. It's eligible for first time interviewees also, but for other countries it will be only those people who are filing for extensions of their visa will qualify for a visa waiver. So this is a great program to have in place, and I think the main reason they're having this is because there is such a backlog in the consulates. We've seen that this year and the year before, but due to COVID, there is a huge immigrant visa backlog as well as non-immigrant visa interview backlogs, and it's really difficult to get an appointment. So they have decided, some common sense has prevailed, and they've decided, especially for extensions, that if everything seems okay, they can just waive the interview, thereby decreasing the processing time for the visa, and not having to schedule in so many people to come in person, especially with COVID. So that's one good update that I have for you. Now my second update is with reference to H-1B registration program. We all know that this is we're already in January 5th, and for those of us who are interested in filing H-1s, we know that new H-1s, the registrations for new H-1s open up in March, usually in the second week of March. So it's important that we, gather all the information that we have for this year on H-1B registrations. So one development has been that, under Trump's era, there was a proposed rule that the lottery system, that's the H-1B registration system, is nothing but registering for the lottery. So there was a proposal that only when you register for the lottery, only those people with a higher wage salary would be accepted in the lottery first. And then if there were still numbers available, they would accept people with lower wages. In other words, registrations for level 4 wages would be picked first, would be put into the lottery first. And then it would move to level 3 and then level 2 and then level 1. And so that is completely changing the way the H-1B registration or lottery system is done, because now it's random. The lottery is supposed to be random. It's supposed to be by chance, because so that everybody gets an equal opportunity. Because there are only, 85,000 numbers and 3 times that amount apply. So how do they decide who gets in and who doesn't? It has to be an unbiased system. So having that bias of wage would completely change the whole concept of a lottery system. So a U.S. district judge struck down that Trump era rule, and he basically replaced it with the wage-based system which we have presently. Under this rule, so it won't be based on the wage levels, but it will be simply based on a random lottery done through the computer. This new rule is timely. This judgment by U.S. District Judge Jeffrey White is timely, because this new rule was set to go into effect on December 31st, 2021, meaning it would have impacted this year's H-1Bs. So Judge White's decision comes as a welcome relief for many who have been concerned about the impact of the wage-based systems, especially for small businesses and for those recovering from COVID during the pandemic. A wage-based system would have been very restrictive and prevented companies from bringing in the talent that they need to bring in. So that's a piece of good news that we have. The second update is that there's been a lawsuit filed regarding the current registration system, and with reference to filing of duplication. So right now the system is that if you are employee, you can file as a person, as an individual, you can file any number of registrations as long as the registration is not for the same employer. So you can file a registration for 5 different employers and thereby increase your chance of, getting into the lottery system because you have more chances of being picked. So there's a pending lawsuit regarding this. And the registration system, basically the lawsuit says that this present registration system, which allows duplicate registrations, decreases the chances of, lottery selections for those who actually follow the law and submit a single registration.
Right.
So the US government, USCIS, has asked for this to be dismissed, but District Judge Trevor McFadden denied the request, and so the court has said that the matter can proceed, and it doesn't really matter that whether the employers still want to hire those employees or not, because it's all time bound, right? It only matters that at the time that the lawsuit was filed, that they had, employment for those individuals. So based on that, USCIS was trying to have them dismiss the case, but that didn't work. So we still have a pending lawsuit. So we have to wait and see what will happen with this lawsuit. If the judge will rule that, duplicate filings are unlawful, in which case then they will have to change that. So we're waiting to see. It's definitely useful not to have duplicate filings because then more people will get a chance or get a bite at the apple. And it'll be a fairer system, I think. So waiting to see what happens with the duplicate H-1B registrations.
Right. That's great. So I think we've gotten quite a couple of good news for ourselves. So moving on from this, you said you wanted to tell us about the updates and highlights of 2021. So is that going to be a review or a summary of what happened, what was last year?
Yes, kind of a summary, but of course we can't cover everything.
Right.
And there's a lot of asylum related information that I won't cover because I know most of our viewers are Indian nationals and not many Indian nationals file for asylum. So I will talk more about, family-based, employment-based, whatever happened in that space, and cover a little bit of what I think is important in the other areas, again, time permitting. So the first is, of course, the vaccine mandate for travelers. We've talked about this in our previous shows, but that is a biggie. November 8, 2021, Biden administration implemented a policy for international air travelers, and he said that all non-US citizens and non-immigrant travelers have to be fully vaccinated. And he's defined what fully vaccinated means, and they have defined what vaccines are acceptable and what is not. So that's a big update or something that happened in 2021. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule. Travelers under the age of 18 are exempted. Minors minors aged 2 to 17 must test negative prior to departure, but vaccination is not required. Persons who have medical conditions are exempted. So people who have, who are allergic to vaccines, they are exempted. Or if they're pregnant or there's some kind of something that could cause harm to them by taking a vaccine, so they're exempted. They need to get a medical approval from their doctor. People from countries with less than a 10% total vaccination rate because of lack of availability of vaccines, they're exempt because even if they want to get exempted, they can't. But you have to remember that you have to check the CDC website to make sure that you are appraised of the latest updates because this keeps changing.
But Ms. Reddy, as long
and of course
as
you have
right. No, I was just wondering, as long as we're on this topic talking about vaccines, do you think the new rise in Omicron cases or the whole Delmicron cases that have come up is going to affect the travel between or to US, to and fro from US? Are there any slight chances of that? Must one be warned if they're planning towards the US travel of these new rising COVID cases of the new variant?
So, as I said, you have to go to the CDC website every day before you're planning to travel to check. But the main problem would be for people who are traveling, who have families here in the US and jobs, and who are non-citizens or permanent residents, and they travel, non-immigrants basically, who travel back to India. They are always at risk of not being able to come back because of because of the travel bans that have been on and off, right,
Right.
throughout the COVID period. So you never know what will come up, but so far it doesn't look like Omicron is going to cause any travel ban, that the present government is going to put a travel ban on any country because of Omicron. But who knows in the future if things get bad, because they did have that for South Africa, but they've just lifted it. But of course, there's more information available now since they put that travel ban on South Africa. There's more information available now that Omicron is not so much of a threat, and though it's highly um, contagious, it doesn't actually cause severe disease. So unless there might be a new thing that you were talking about, and that has shown up in France, but we don't know much about it yet. So yes, to answer your question in a nutshell, it's always a risk to travel during COVID times.
Yeah.
Unless you're traveling for a short period of time, then nothing is likely to happen. But if you're going for
Right.
3 months, then a lot can happen in 3 months, and even a lot can happen in 1 month.
So visitor
So,
visa or like business visa would probably not be that much of a problem or a threat.
well, then you're just traveling to the US. You don't live in the US, so it doesn't matter
Right.
if you
Right.
can or cannot come back, right?
Correct.
You're not living here.
Yeah.
But if you live here and you're not able to come back, that's a huge problem,
Yeah.
because your job, your family, blah blah, everything
Yeah. The
becomes
livelihood is in that
problematic.
country. Right. Agreed.
Yeah, so I still tell people to be cautious. People are non-immigrants, but people are traveling. You can't keep people in one place for too long, and you can't keep them
Yeah.
from visiting families.
Right.
So, just be vigilant, that's all.
Right.
So that's one. And then the update on DACA. DACA is basically, it's been going on for a while. It's basically an executive order that was passed by the Obama government, which gave young people in the US who are out of status but came here before they were 18, and they were while they were in high school, and they became out of status due to no fault of their own, or because they were still children at that time. So they were trying to give this section of people some kind of relief, and it's been going back and forth. It's being litigated. It was litigated by the Trump government. The US Supreme Court overruled the DACA program, and in July 2021, a federal judge barred the USCIS from processing new requests for DACA. So it's in a state of flux, and it's a big topic of discussion here, because everybody wants the dreamers. They're called the dreamers. Everybody wants the dreamers to get some kind of a benefit and not have to leave and go to a country that they're not familiar with. So because they basically came here as children, and they did their entire education here, and it's a resource for the United States for US educated people then to leave. They're losing a valuable resource. So no new DACA applicants have been adjudicated, but the Biden administration is trying to codify the program in the form of a regulation to give it some stronger foundation, so that they can reintroduce it, and then there'll be less legal challenges to it. Also, there's been some pending legislation, because it hasn't been passed yet. So legislation has been proposed to help these dreamers get some kind of
Right.
status. So that is still ongoing. We have to wait and see what happens this year. And then, in addition to that, Trump the year before introduced, actually in 2019, he introduced a wealth test. It's called the public charge rule. And the wealth test basically said that unless you pass that particular test, meaning unless you're able to show that not only have you not been a public charge in the past, but you're not likely to be a public charge in the future. Public charge meaning the government having to support you.
Right.
So you have to show a future possibility that you won't be, which means that you have to show that you have the probability that you will get a job, the probability that you have good prospects to get a job at least. So this was a problem. So unless you show this in certain ways, and this was a very subjective test again, so they can deny any cases based on this. So this wealth test was required for all green card applications. So that was a big thing. Any person who wanted to file a green card had to pass this public charge rule. And because of this, October 2020, when all those green cards were filed, because visa numbers suddenly became available for Indian nationals, we had to submit 500, 600 pages of documents, credit reports, health insurance reports, showing that the person will not be a public charge. It was just ridiculous, the amount of paperwork that had to be submitted. So it's not so much of a problem for employment-based people because they already have employment, but it is a problem for their dependents, and it's a huge problem for family-based applicants, because when you file for your parent, the parent doesn't have a job, is most likely retired, will most likely take some form of public benefit once they get a green card, because that's available to them, Medicaid. So it was a problem for family-based, and it was simply a way of shutting down, green card processing. Right. So the good news is that that this is no longer the case. In this last year, the courts struck down this rule, so we don't have to deal with the public charge rule anymore. It's unlikely to be a problem anymore, but DHS has published an advance notice of proposed rulemaking, so there is some rule that they have proposed, but they're seeking public input as of now to see how likely or how good this rule is and how effective it is. But as of now, the public charge rule has gone away.
Right.
So that's a big relief for most of us, because that would prevent a lot of people from getting green cards. Yeah. The other quick thing that I have to, since we're running out of time, foreign workers, spouse workers permits. So again, last year, like the year before, there was a lot of delays on USCIS processing side. So there were immense delays on non-immigrant and immigrant visa processing at USCIS. And so as a result of which, in November, spouses of certain, again, this is through court, no regulations have been passed in recent time. Everything that is happening, the relief is happening because of the courts, because people are filing lawsuits. So in November 2021, spouses of certain foreign workers in the US won a victory when a settlement was reached by their lawyers and by USCIS. Because there was a court settlement, and the USCIS didn't want to go through all the proceedings. So USCIS basically agreed that all those dependents, H4s basically, and L2s, what has happened last year is there were huge backlogs for all those H4 extensions. That is, H4s are dependents of H1. So the dependents of the H1, when they were trying to renew their status and renew their EAD, which is work authorization. Some H4s can apply for work authorization. When they were trying to do that, that was taking 12 months, 18 months, when it should take 3 or 4 months for them to renew their work authorization. And so they were losing their jobs, because no employer will allow you to hold on to a job for so long without actually coming to work. So same thing with L2. So the settlement basically said that as long as your I-94, it was a limited victory, because it just said that as long as the H4 status is still there, they can get a temporary extension of their H4 EAD. But the H4 also has expired. There's not much that can be done.
Right.
So only temporary relief. But for L2s, which is basically the spouses of L1s, there was a broader relief given to them. Basically, it said that automatically all L2s could work. They didn't have to apply for any AAD, which is good because that's actually the law. But
Right.
USCIS has been circumventing that law and asking even L2 people to file for EAD applications. So it was decided that L2s don't have to file for EAD applications.
So I think we
I
do,
think,
right.
yeah,
So I was just going to say that I think we have a lot of great news this time. So we started, I'm sure, looks like we've started the new year on a good note, on a high note. There are quite a couple of good news for all of those aspiring for a visa extension, especially. So with that, we come to the end of the session, Ms. Reddy. So what is your golden immigration message for our viewers this week?
um, say part of it is what I said about traveling. Be vigilant. Make sure you are always updated with the CDC website with reference to what the travel restrictions are, especially if you're a non-immigrant. Avoid travel if you can, and then just be safe and stay healthy. Wear a mask.
Always, always, always wear a mask. That is very important. So with that, we end the show. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ms. Reddy, for the valuable insights you give us and for all of the detailed information you share with our viewers.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
You're watching Sakshi TV Live with me, Torini Makana. Thank you.